What did your boyfriend's Russian grandma say about you when she thought you couldn't understand? She's too skinny. Feed her more borscht. American girls don't know how to eat properly. That was my welcome to the family, delivered by Babushka. Vera approximately 30 seconds after I crossed their threshold. Picture this. I'm standing in their cozy Brooklyn apartment, wearing what I'd carefully selected as my meeting the grandmother outfit. Respectable, but not trying too hard. Approachable, but not presumptuous, while receiving a live critique of my entire physical existence. Vera Petrovna, and yes, I eventually learned her full name through what can only be described as months of covert intelligence gathering, was exactly what Central Casting would order for intimidating Russian grandmother. Tiny, maybe 4'11" in her house slippers, wearing what appeared to be the same floral house dress that every Russian grandmother has apparently agreed to adopt as standard uniform, but with eyes that could appraise your soul and probably calculate your credit score while making dinner plans. She looked me up and down like she was evaluating livestock at a county fair, then immediately launched into this rapid-fire assessment directed at Alex's mom, as if I were a fascinating but slightly concerning anthropological specimen that had wandered into their living room. Now, Alex is doing his absolute best impression of a diplomatic cultural translator, completely oblivious to the fact that his grandmother is conducting what amounts to a comprehensive girlfriend audit with detailed performance metrics. Babushka says, "Welcome to our home," he'd announced proudly, while Vera was actually providing minute-by-minute commentary on my bone structure and apparent reproductive potential. And speaking of reproductive assessments, that's exactly where her evaluation headed next, with the kind of matter-of-fact directness that only Russian grandmothers can truly master. "This one has good hips for babies," she declared to Alex with the same casual tone one might use to comment on favorable weather conditions. "Strong legs, good bone structure. Tell me, when exactly are you planning to give me great-grandchildren? To spoil?" Poor Alex, who catches maybe every fifth word of his grandmother's lightning-speed Russian commentary, responded with enthusiastic nodding like he'd just agreed to help with weekend yard work. "Yes, Babushka, she's very nice." The eye roll that followed could have registered on seismic equipment. Vera actually sighed audibly, muttered something about men being fundamentally useless creatures who never pay proper attention to important conversations, then redirected her laser focus toward me and launched what I now fondly remember as the Great Feeding Campaign of 2023. Picture this delicate social dance. I'm attempting to navigate standard meet the family protocol. You know, that carefully choreographed performance of seeming interested but not desperate, knowledgeable but not presumptuous, charming but not artificially so, while this tiny powerhouse keeps materializing beside me with increasingly elaborate food offerings that appeared faster than I could reasonably consume them. Bread materialized. Then more bread. Soup appeared before I'd finished the previous bowl. Pickles multiplied like they were conducting their own secret reproduction program. Something that might have been a casserole but could equally have been an advanced chemistry experiment. And throughout this entire feeding frenzy, Vera maintained running commentary in Russian that served as equal parts anthropological observation and gentle nutritional criticism. "Look at this!" She finished the entire bowl. "This is genuinely encouraging progress. American girls usually pick at their food like anxious sparrows, but this one eats with proper appreciation. She understands that food represents love and cultural respect. Very promising development." What I didn't realize during that first dinner was that I had unknowingly enrolled in what would become monthly performance evaluations conducted by the most thorough relationship consultant I'd ever encountered. This wasn't just meeting the family. This was an elaborate assessment program with detailed criteria and ongoing progress reports. The second family dinner brought upgraded commentary with increasingly sophisticated analysis. Vera whispered to Alex's aunt, and I need you to understand that she genuinely believed whispering in Russian created some kind of magical privacy barrier that rendered her conversations completely inaudible to nearby American ears. The girl still needs considerably more meat on her bones, but she consumed 3 full bowls of my soup and specifically requested the recipe with genuine interest. She's demonstrating appropriate respect for family food traditions and cultural heritage. Marked improvement from previous American girlfriend attempts. Wait, previous American girlfriend attempts? This was news to me, and suddenly I realized I wasn't just being evaluated. I was being compared to some kind of mysterious predecessor database that Vera apparently maintained for quality control purposes. By the third family gathering, I understood that I was being subjected to comprehensive behavioral analysis that would make professional psychologists envious. At Alex's birthday party, Vera provided his cousin with real-time psychological assessment that was both terrifying and oddly impressive in its accuracy. Observe carefully how she monitors the situation when he converses with other women. Notice her eyes tracking every interaction. Excellent strategic instincts. She maintains protective vigilance without displaying possessive insecurity. She's territorial in precisely the right proportion. Enough to defend her investment, not enough to create unnecessary drama. I approve completely of this level of calculated awareness. She was reading me like I was her favorite mystery novel, and honestly, her assessment was uncomfortably accurate. I was indeed cataloging every female interaction for potential threat levels while maintaining my sweetest, most trusting girlfriend expression. But then came what I now think of as the ultimate relationship stress test, courtesy of an unexpected guest appearance that nobody saw coming. The ex-girlfriend situation. Now, I need to set this scene with the kind of detail it deserves, because what happened next reads like something from a romantic comedy screenplay, except it was happening in real life, and I was definitely not prepared for the level of strategic maneuvering that was about to unfold in Alex's parents' living room. We're enjoying this lovely family birthday celebration. Everyone's relaxed and having a wonderful time when the front door opens and in walks Natasha. Beautiful, unmistakably Russian, clearly familiar with every family member and inside joke, and absolutely determined to remind everyone present that she and Alex shared significant romantic history that predated my existence in their family narrative. She worked that room like she was campaigning for political office, making sure to laugh just a fraction too loudly at Alex's jokes, finding creative excuses to touch his arm during conversations, positioning herself strategically in group photos, and generally conducting herself like someone who'd studied an advanced manual on how to reclaim your ex-boyfriend during family gatherings, a comprehensive guide. Meanwhile, I'm standing there clutching my plate of Vera's famous potato salad, trying to maintain my composure while internally calculating exactly how satisfying it might be to accidentally spill something colorfully permanent on Natasha's pristine white designer dress. But here's what made this entire situation absolutely fascinating from an observational standpoint. Vera wasn't watching Natasha's elaborate performance, or Alex's slightly uncomfortable but polite responses, or even the family's mixed reactions to this unexpected dramatic subplot. She was watching me, studying my reaction reactions like I was the most compelling documentary subject she'd encountered in decades. She turned to Alex's mom and provided what I can only describe as live psychological analysis, delivered with the precision of a trained behavioral specialist. Study the American girl's response carefully. Notice how perfectly calm she appears on the surface, but observe her eyes. They're communicating a very specific message to potential competition. I will bury you in the backyard if you don't immediately retreat from my clearly established territory. Absolutely perfect emotional control. This is exactly the kind of strategic thinking we want integrated into our family dynamics. She was reading my internal monologue like it was printed in large font, which was simultaneously impressive and slightly terrifying. Because yes, I was indeed plotting various creative solutions to the Natasha problem while maintaining my most innocent, supportive girlfriend smile. Then Vera did something that made me fall completely and irrevocably in love with her tactical genius. She didn't create a scene, didn't embarrass anyone, didn't generate family drama or awkward confrontations. Instead, she approached Natasha with the most grandmotherly, welcoming smile imaginable and delivered what I can only describe as the most elegantly polite threat I've ever had the privilege to witness. "Little girl," she said in Russian, her voice honey sweet, but her words absolutely lethal. "This American has already established her territory in our family. Perhaps you should find yourself another romantic project before she decides to demonstrate exactly what American women do to persistent competition." The effect was immediate and spectacular. Natasha's confident smile faltered. She glanced around the room as if suddenly realizing she'd miscalculated the social dynamics, grabbed her purse, offered hasty goodbye hugs, and vanished into the night. Like she'd been visited by the ghost of relationships past, bearing uncomfortable truths about strategic positioning. And Vera? Vera turned around and winked at me. Actually winked, like we were co-conspirators in some elaborate heist that had just concluded successfully, and I nearly broke character laughing right there in their living room. That moment marked the beginning of what I now think of as my advanced education in Russian family dynamics, conducted entirely in secret, while I maintained my cover as the linguistically innocent American girlfriend. For months after that incident, I lived this delightful double life as an accidental secret agent in my own relationship. I was gathering intelligence on family hierarchies, absorbing traditional Russian cooking wisdom directly from primary sources, and receiving relationship counseling from someone who'd successfully navigated 60 years of marriage and clearly understood the complex mathematics of long-term partnership. Vera's commentary evolved into increasingly sophisticated analysis that covered everything from my outfit choices to my conversation topics, from how I interacted with different family members to my posture during various discussions. She provided regular progress reports to Alex's relatives that were both comprehensive and surprisingly affectionate. The American girl is developing proper seasoning instincts in her cooking. She asks thoughtful questions about family history and actually remembers the answers. She sends birthday cards without being reminded. She's integrating successfully into our cultural expectations while maintaining her own personality. Very satisfactory progress overall. But she also started sharing more intimate family wisdom during these covert commentary sessions. She'd discuss the delicate art of managing strong-willed husbands, the importance of maintaining friendships outside romantic relationships, strategies for navigating extended family politics, and the crucial skill of knowing when to fight your battles versus when to let smaller issues resolve themselves naturally. Was receiving a masterclass in relationship navigation that you absolutely cannot learn from advice columns or self-help books, all while pretending to need translations for the simplest Russian phrases. The grocery shopping expeditions became particularly enlightening. Vera had opinions about everything. Which vegetables were worth the premium price, how to identify the freshest bread, the proper way to select meat, which cashiers provided the best service, and why certain brands represented better value than their flashier competitors. But more than that, these trips became opportunities for her to share stories about her own early marriage, the challenges of adapting to American life while preserving Russian traditions, and the delicate balance of respecting your partner's family while establishing your own household rules. Marriage, she told Alex's mom during one particularly memorable shopping expedition, while I pretended to be fascinated by produce selection, requires constant negotiation, not fighting, not surrendering, but finding creative solutions that let everyone feel respected. The American girl understands this instinctively. She doesn't try to change Alex, but she also doesn't disappear into his preferences. Good balance. These monthly family gatherings became my ongoing education in cultural navigation, and I started recognizing patterns in Vera's commentary that revealed her sophisticated understanding of relationship dynamics. She wasn't just evaluating whether I met some arbitrary standard of appropriateness for her grandson. She was teaching me, through her observations and critiques, exactly how to become the kind of partner who would contribute positively to their family ecosystem. Every criticism came with implicit guidance. When she noted that I needed better posture during dinner conversations, she was teaching me about projecting confidence and respect. When she approved of my questions about family history, she was encouraging deeper cultural engagement. When she praised my remembering relatives' names and interests, she was reinforcing the importance of genuine attention and care for family relationships. But every good espionage story has that crucial moment where carefully maintained covers get blown. And mine happened during what should have been a completely routine grocery shopping expedition that turned into the most dramatically revealing afternoon of this entire operation. Alex and I were helping Vera with her weekly grocery run, partly because she claimed she needed assistance carrying heavier items, partly because I suspected she genuinely enjoyed having an audience for her extensive and hilariously specific grocery store opinions, which ranged from produce selection philosophy to comprehensive cashier personality analysis. We're standing in the checkout line, having successfully navigated the complex process of Vera's grocery methodology, when we encounter this cashier who is clearly having the kind of day that makes you question fundamental life choices and apparently deciding to take his frustrations out on elderly customers who spoke with accents. He's being dismissive, speaking unnecessarily loudly and slowly like volume somehow equals comprehension, rolling his eyes at Vera's careful English, and generally displaying the kind of behavior that makes you lose faith in basic human decency and proper customer service training. Vera starts muttering under her breath in Russian, and I can hear every word of her increasingly colorful assessment of the situation. This little boy thinks I'm stupid because I'm old and foreign and speak with an accent. If I was 50 years younger and had fewer social constraints, I would teach him exactly what Russian women do to disrespectful children who haven't learned proper manners. The educational experience would be memorable and character building. Muttering continues with increasingly creative descriptions of potential consequences for rudeness, and I'm trying not to react while also feeling genuinely angry on her behalf. This sweet, dignified woman who makes the most incredible incredible soup and gives the wisest relationship advice shouldn't have to tolerate this kind of treatment from someone who's clearly never learned basic respect for his elders. Then she looks directly at me, and folks, this is the exact moment where I should have maintained my carefully constructed cover, should have continued playing the confused American girlfriend role that I'd been performing so successfully for months. But something about the way she looked at me, this combination of frustration and quiet dignity, and maybe just a hint of hope, and she says in Russian, "American girl, you seem intelligent and capable. Help me teach this boy some proper manners and basic respect." And I just completely lost it. All those months of careful linguistic camouflage just evaporated in the face of someone being unnecessarily rude to this woman I'd grown to genuinely love and respect. Looked directly at this dismissive cashier and said, in perfect, fluent, slightly sarcastic Russian, "My babushka says you're being extremely rude and disrespectful, and she's considering adopting you just so she can ground you properly until you learn basic courtesy toward your elders." The silence that followed was absolutely deafening and seemed to expand to fill the entire grocery store. The cashier's jaw literally dropped open like someone had disconnected his facial muscle coordination. Other customers in nearby lines turned to stare with expressions ranging from surprise to amusement to approval. Alex looked like someone had just informed him that gravity was optional and the fundamental laws of physics were actually just friendly suggestions. And Vera? Vera stared at me for approximately 3 seconds that felt like 3 geological epochs, her expression cycling through surprise, realization, delight, and something that might have been pride, then started laughing so hard she was crying. Full body, can't catch her breath, wiping tears with her handkerchief, laughing that attracted attention from 3 aisles away. "You magnificent, sneaky little fox," she managed between gasps, switching seamlessly to English that was far more fluent than she'd ever revealed before. "How long have you understood every single word I've been saying?" "Since the first dinner," I admitted, feeling like a spy whose cover had been blown, but who was oddly relieved to finally tell the truth. "When you evaluated my hip-to-baby ratio and declared that American girls don't understand proper eating habits." She grabbed my face with both hands, and let me tell you, for someone barely approaching 5 feet tall, she had a surprisingly firm grip, looked me directly in the eyes with an expression of absolute delight and said, "You are absolutely perfect for my grandson. Clever enough to understand everything, patient enough to let an old woman have her entertainment, and respectful enough not to embarrass me when you could have revealed your secret any time. I approve completely and officially." Then she turned to Alex, who was still standing there looking like someone had just explained quantum physics using interpretive dance performed by invisible actors, and said in perfectly clear, unaccented English, "Your girlfriend is a treasure and you're lucky to have found her. She speaks Russian better than you do, you linguistically lazy boy." And that dedication, that willingness to put in considerable effort to become part of something bigger than himself, to learn and grow and adapt in service of deeper family connection, is exactly why Vera approved of him as suitable grandson material in the first place. Not because he arrived perfect, but because he demonstrated the character and commitment necessary to become the kind of person who deserves to be part of their family story, which, when you think about it, represents the most fundamentally Russian approach to relationships, valuing potential and effort over initial perfection, understanding that the best partnerships are built through mutual growth and shared commitment to something larger than individual satisfaction. So that's the complete story of how I accidentally became a double agent in my own relationship. Discovered that Russian grandmothers function as incredibly sophisticated relationship consultants who happen to have superior cooking skills, and learned that sometimes the most effective way to join a family is to let them think they're evaluating you while you're actually absorbing everything you need to know about becoming the person they need you to be. Oh, and those embarrassing childhood stories that Vera claims to be saving for the appropriate post-engagement moment, I may or may not have already heard several of them during our weekly grocery shopping expeditions, cooking lesson sessions, and those extended car rides when she assumes Alex can't hear backseat conversations conducted in rapid Russian. But Alex doesn't need to know that particular information. Yet after all, every good relationship needs a little mystery, every functional family requires some strategic secret keeping, and every proper Russian babushka needs her carefully maintained arsenal of leverage material for special occasions. The secrets we keep, the stories we save for the right moments, the mysteries we maintain not out of malice but out of love. Sometimes they're not about power or control or manipulation. Sometimes they're just about preserving the magic that transforms ordinary family dinners into elaborate adventures, that turns routine grocery shopping into covert cultural education, that makes ordinary relationships feel like the most delightfully complicated and rewarding conspiracies you've ever had the privilege to join. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you discover that the most beautiful conspiracies are the ones where everyone involved is secretly working toward the same goal, building something meaningful together, one shared secret and one family dinner at a time. The cashier, meanwhile, had apparently decided that discretion was the better part of valor, and processed our transaction with considerably improved courtesy and several apologetic glances in Vera's direction. The car ride home was absolutely fascinating from a social dynamics perspective. Alex kept glancing at me like I'd just revealed I was actually an international spy operating under deep cover, which honestly wasn't far from how I felt about the entire situation. "You speak Russian fluently," he said, managing to make it sound simultaneously like a question, an accusation, an expression of awe, and a request for explanation. "Your babushka has been providing me with cooking tutorials, relationship counseling, and cultural education for months," I replied. "Also, she has very specific and detailed opinions about your childhood behavioral patterns and academic performance." "What else has she been saying about me?" Alex asked, and I could detect genuine concern creeping into his voice, probably wondering exactly how many embarrassing childhood stories I'd been privy to during my months of covert intelligence gathering. Vera, from the backseat, patted his cheek affectionately and said in Russian, "Don't worry, grandson. She only heard the complimentary things and the general relationship advice. The truly embarrassing stories about your childhood mishaps and adolescent romantic failures I've been carefully saving for after she becomes official family through proper engagement." I translated this for Alex, watching him turn approximately 17 different shades of red as the implications sank in. "Babushka," he said very carefully, probably calculating exactly how many potentially mortifying stories might be stored in her memory banks. "What specific embarrassing stories are you referring to?" Vera just produced that mysteriously knowing, grandmother smile that suggested extensive archives of ammunition and replied, "Ask me again after you propose to her properly." And that, folks, is how I discovered that my months of linguistic espionage had actually been part of an even more elaborate long-term strategy orchestrated by a master tactician who'd been playing chess while I thought we were playing checkers. firecrackers. Now, every family dinner has transformed into elaborate performance art that would make professional theater companies envious. Vera and I have perfected the subtle art of meaningful glances, strategic Russian commentary, and perfectly timed English translations that reveal just enough information to keep Alex slightly paranoid but not actually worried about the content of our increasingly frequent conspiratorial conversations. And we are definitely plotting on multiple levels. Meal planning strategies that incorporate both traditional Russian recipes and modern nutritional awareness. Family gossip coordination to ensure everyone stays properly informed about relatives' major life developments. Tactical approaches to getting Alex to take better care of his health without making him feel nagged. Detailed discussions about which family members give the most thoughtful holiday presents and how to reciprocate appropriately. Plus, yes, occasional teasing references to those mysterious childhood stories that apparently exist in some kind of grandmother vault, carefully cataloged and waiting for the appropriate moment of strategic deployment. Alex, bless his determined and slightly paranoid heart, has started taking Russian lessons on Duolingo with the kind of intensity usually reserved for advanced academic degrees. Vera finds this absolutely hilarious and provides regular commentary on his progress that ranges from encouraging to gently mocking. Too late now, grandson, she tells him in Russian while he's struggling with basic vocabulary exercises and grammatical structures. We already have all the important secrets, and your pronunciation needs considerable work before you'll be able to understand our more sophisticated conversations. Last week, she told me in Russian that she discovered Alex's old elementary school report cards in a box of family memorabilia and wanted to discuss his third-grade mathematics difficulties and creative writing assignments in comprehensive detail. I informed Alex that she was complimenting his recent haircut and expressing approval of his new exercise routine. He spent 20 minutes trying to figure out why that particular observation required such an extended and apparently fascinating conversation that included multiple references to specific years and academic subjects. The week before that, she shared detailed analysis of Alex's high school dating patterns and provided her professional assessment of why those relationships hadn't worked out, along with comparative analysis of how I represented significant improvement in his romantic decision-making process. I told Alex she was praising his recent cooking attempts and suggesting he should try making borscht from scratch. But here's what I learned during my months as an accidental linguistic spy that goes far beyond the entertainment value of secret conversations. Vera's running commentary wasn't just for her own amusement, and it wasn't just about evaluating whether I met her standards for appropriate grandson-girlfriend material. She was actually conducting this incredibly sophisticated masterclass in family integration, cultural navigation, and relationship dynamics that you absolutely cannot learn from conventional sources. Every criticism came with implicit practical guidance. Every observation was paired with gentle instruction that helped me understand not just what was expected, but why those expectations existed and how they served the larger goal of family harmony and cultural preservation. When she declared I was too skinny, she immediately began teaching me traditional family recipes while explaining how food preparation and sharing represents love, care, and cultural continuity across generations. When she approved of my territorial instincts regarding other women, she also made sure I understood the crucial difference between healthy protective awareness and destructive jealous possessiveness. She taught me that feeding someone is one of the most fundamental love languages, transcending cultural boundaries but expressed differently across traditions. That paying attention to your partner's social interactions isn't paranoia or insecurity when done thoughtfully. It's investment in your relationship's health and your mutual understanding of social dynamics. That sometimes the most effective way to handle romantic competition is to let your established presence and demonstrated values speak for themselves while maintaining strategic backup plans and clear boundary communications. But most importantly, she taught me that joining a family isn't just about being accepted or tolerated, it's about discovering your unique role in their particular ecosystem and contributing something meaningful to their collective story. Every family has its own culture, its own unspoken language, its own intricate web of traditions, expectations, inside jokes, and shared experiences. And if you want to become genuinely part of that family rather than just an occasional visiting outsider, you need to learn not just how to exist within their established dynamics, but how to add something valuable that makes everyone's life a little richer, more interesting, more joyful. Vera wasn't just evaluating whether I was good enough for Alex in some abstract sense. She was determining whether I could become good enough for all of them, whether I could integrate into their family culture while maintaining my own identity, whether I could contribute positively to their traditions while helping them evolve and grow. And apparently, my particular contribution to their family narrative is serving as the granddaughter-in-law who speaks better Russian than the actual grandson, can function as Vera's partner in benevolent family manipulation and cultural preservation, and provides a bridge between traditional Russian family values and modern American relationship dynamics, which honestly feels like a pretty wonderful and meaningful role to have landed in this beautifully chaotic family story. These days, family dinners have evolved into elaborate theatrical productions that would make professional entertainment companies envious of our improvisational skills. Vera and I have mastered the art of meaningful glances that communicate volumes, strategic conversational pauses that create perfect dramatic timing, perfectly placed Russian asides that make Alex frantically reach for his phone to check Google Translate, only to discover we were discussing something completely mundane like grocery store sales or weather prediction accuracy. The best part is watching Alex's determined and increasingly successful efforts to learn Russian fast enough to participate meaningfully in our conversations. He's genuinely committed to understanding what we're saying, not because he's suspicious or insecure about potential conspiracies, but because he wants to be included in this linguistic community we've created. He wants to understand the cultural references, appreciate the family jokes, participate in the traditional language practices, be part of the full family experience rather than always needing translations and explanations.
People who fell asleep in class and woke up in the weirdest way. What happened? I'm sitting in Mr. Thompson's history class, completely exhausted from staying up all night studying for this massive test. The guy's droning on about World War II, and my eyelids are getting heavier by the second. Next thing I know, I'm out cold. I wake up to the sound of someone crying, but not just any crying, ugly, heartbreaking sobs. I open my eyes and realize the entire class is staring at me, and Mr. Thompson is standing right next to my desk with tears streaming down his face. Apparently, while I was asleep, I'd been talking, not just mumbling random words, but having a full conversation with someone named Grandpa Joe. I was telling him about school, asking him if he was proud of me, and apparently saying things like, I miss you so much, and why did you have to leave? Weird part, I never had a grandpa named Joe. My grandfathers died when I was a baby, and neither was called Joe, but Mr. Thompson, his dad was Joe Thompson, and he died exactly 1 year ago that day. According to my classmates, I'd been repeating things that only Mr. Thompson's father would have known, like how proud he was of his son becoming a teacher, and how he wished he could have seen him get married last summer. Everything I said were his father's exact words, word for word. We never spoke about it again.
People who got expelled from school. What did you do? I was 3 weeks from graduating when Principal Morrison called me into his office looking like I'd personally vandalized his soul, which was weirdly accurate considering the evidence he slid across his desk. Photos of someone in my exact hoodie spray painting giant question marks all over the school at night. The thing is, I genuinely had zero memory of becoming the Banksy of punctuation. And trust me, philosophical graffiti seems like something I'd remember doing. I'm staring at these photos thinking maybe I'd developed some kind of artistic sleepwalking disorder when my phone buzzes with a text from my best friend Katie. Did you get the photos I left in your locker? Thanks for letting me borrow your hoodie last week. Turns out Katie had been conducting her own social experiment about assumptions and authority using my clothes as her disguise, and somehow forgot to mention this before I got dragged into the principal's office for crimes against campus aesthetics. I showed Morrison the text. He called Katie down for the world's most awkward explanation of her commentary on educational systems, and we both ended up with suspension instead of expulsion. The question marks stayed up all semester because apparently even the janitor found them thought-provoking.
People who lost a friendship over a group chat, what really happened? Mine involved discovering my friends had turned me into their personal entertainment system. Emma had created this mysterious group chat everyone seemed bizarrely secretive about. I'd noticed them frantically typing during lunch, then switching to innocent small talk when I'd approach. So I started dropping hints about how much I loved surprises. Peak delusion, really. Then came the day I borrowed Chloe's phone to check the time. A notification popped up from their group chat called The Daily Show. I opened it expecting weekend plans. Instead, I found a museum of my most embarrassing moments. That time, I waved at someone who was actually waving at the person behind me, documented with commentary. My habit of laughing at my own jokes, their favorite recurring segment. But here's the most painful part that shattered everything. They'd been rating my daily performances like Olympic judges. Monday's cafeteria stumble, 7 out of 10. Tuesday's failed joke attempt, solid 8.5. I quietly handed Chloe back her phone, mumbled about feeling sick, and evaporated from their lives. 3 months later, Emma texted asking if I was okay because I'd been acting distant. I screenshot her message and sent it to my roommate with the caption, "Remember that story about the friends who turned me into entertainment?"
People who met their celebrity crush and it was nothing like you imagined. What happened? I was broke and desperate when I saw the job posting. Personal assistant to Jake Morrison, my hometown actor I'd been obsessed with since I was 16. My roommate found me hyperventilating over my laptop at 3 a.m., half-finished application glowing on the screen. 2 weeks later, his manager called. The interview was at his penthouse, and I spent the drive practicing how to act normal around someone whose face had covered my bedroom walls for 4 years. Jake opened the door in sweatpants, offered me coffee, and was genuinely amazing those first few months. Professional, kind, remembered my birthday. I thought I'd won the lottery. 4 months later, comments about my clothes started, suggestions I wear my hair down more, late night calls for things that could wait until morning. I brushed it off because honestly, I was still half in love with the guy. The breaking point came when I was organizing his closet and he walked in, closed the door behind him. "You're so dedicated," he said, moving closer, hand on my shoulder. "I think we could expand your responsibilities." I froze, my teenage fantasies crashing into this horrible reality where my crush was cornering me. I mumbled something about filing and ran out. But here's the worst part. I didn't quit that day. That stupid fangirl part of me kept making excuses for him. It took 3 more incidents before I finally walked away. 6 months later, I saw him on a talk show discussing his new movie about respecting women. The audience loved it. People who sold their childhood home. What was the last thing you did before leaving? My mom had been ignoring the foreclosure notices for 3 months, shoving them in that kitchen drawer where normal families keep batteries, but we kept unpaid bills and broken dreams. I'm 24, living back home after college because apparently my English degree qualifies me for absolutely nothing except student debt, and suddenly we're packing 17 years of my life into boxes marked Emma's stuff in my mom's defeated handwriting. The house had this weird vibe the last week, like when your phone battery is dying and everything feels urgent and sad at the same time. Mom kept wandering around, touching walls and muttering about memories. Well, I just wanted to grab my stuff and pretend this wasn't happening. But then I found something in my old bedroom closet that made everything infinitely more complicated. Hidden behind my collection of participation trophies and that embarrassing diary with the tiny lock that fooled absolutely nobody, there was this shoebox I'd never seen before. Inside were dozens of envelopes, all addressed to me, all at different dates, spanning the last 10 years. Some were thick, some thin, all sealed with the kind of care that suggested someone had been planning this moment for a very long time. The first one I opened was dated for my 13th birthday and started with, "Emma, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you're finally cleaning out this disaster of a house." My hands actually started shaking because that was definitely not my mom's handwriting. The letter continued, "I'm your dad, by the way. I know your mom told you I disappeared when you were 7, but I've been watching from a distance this whole time. I couldn't be the father you deserved, but I could make sure you'd be okay when everything fell apart. The foreclosure money you think is coming from your mom's mysterious inheritance, that was me. I've been paying for your future from the shadows, one envelope at a time." There were 17 more letters, each one revealing another secret way you've been taking care of us. Anonymous scholarship payments, mysterious car repairs, even that time our electricity got turned back on by mistake. The last envelope contained house keys and an address across town. Turns out my deadbeat dad had spent 10 years buying us a different house, one letter at a time. People who talk in their sleep. What's the strangest thing you've been told you said? I woke up with my head feeling like someone had used it as a bowling ball, and my boyfriend Tom was staring at me like I'd grown a second nose overnight. We'd gone out for drinks the night before. Nothing crazy, just a few cocktails that turned into a few more cocktails that somehow led to us singing karaoke until the bar kicked us out. Tom made coffee and sat down with this weird grin on his face. "So," he said, "last night you gave me a very detailed review of our entire relationship while you were completely asleep." Apparently, around 3 a.m., I sat up in bed, eyes closed, and started talking like I was giving him a performance review at work. I told him his kissing had improved since month 2, his cooking skills were acceptable but could use more garlic, and that he needed to stop leaving his socks on the bedroom floor because it was negatively impacting our living situation. The weirdest part was when I apparently said, "Overall rating, 7 out of 10, would continue dating," and then gave him specific suggestions for improvement, including more surprise hugs and fewer arguments about what to watch on Netflix. Tom recorded some of it on his phone phone, and when he played it back, I was mortified until he said, "Actually, your suggestions were pretty good, especially the one about more garlic." He's been following my sleep advice ever since.
People who used to call their teachers mom by accident. What happened? I'm 9, completely lost during story time, and when Mrs. Garcia asks me to read the next paragraph, I panic and go, "Mom, I can't see the words properly." The whole class giggles, but Mrs. Garcia gets this weird look, not embarrassed for me weird, more like light bulb just went off weird. She starts doing this thing where she'd walk by my desk and quietly ask, "How are your eyes today, sweetie?" I'm thinking she's just being nice about my obvious vision problems. Then she starts leaving little notes in my backpack, nothing creepy, just things like, "Remember to blink when reading," and "Squinting isn't helping." I show my mom these notes thinking Mrs. Garcia is worried about my eyesight. Mom reads them and goes completely quiet. Turns out she'd been hiding that I needed glasses for months because we couldn't afford them. Mrs. Garcia figured it out when I called her mom, and she noticed me squinting exactly like her own daughter used to. Little did I know that Mrs. Garcia had been secretly buying me large print books and sitting me closer to the board. She never said a word about it. The next week, a mysterious package shows up at our house. A brand new pair of glasses and a note that said, "Every kid deserves to see the world clearly."
People who were the forgotten sibling. Did it ever come back to bite your parents? My Golden Girl sister Emma drained their entire $180,000 retirement account for her revolutionary art gallery. That turned out to be a very expensive addiction. And suddenly I went from being the other one to their financial savior at 2 a.m. For 18 years, every family dinner was the Emma show, her art degree, her exhibitions that dad funded while I worked nights at Subway to pay for my engineering course. I was the invisible child who got decent grades but never warranted the same enthusiasm as Emma's latest creative breakthrough, even when I graduated debt-free and bought my first house while she was calling mom crying about rent money. When Emma's gallery meetings turned out to be something much darker and she disappeared with their life savings, guess who got the sobbing phone call asking for help? Not their precious artist, but the steady daughter they'd overlooked for decades because I never needed them like Emma did. I spent a week untangling their financial disaster, basically becoming the adult they'd never let me be while they were busy enabling their favorite child's car crash.
People who've gotten personally offended by weather. What happened? I spent 18 months obsessively checking weather apps for my dream garden wedding, and the universe decided to personally humiliate me with golf ball-sized hail during my vows. You won't believe. For over a year, I'd been that person who knew the extended forecast better than the local weatherman, researching historical weather patterns going back 30 years. Channel 7's smug meteorologist Brad Weatherby had been promising picture-perfect conditions all week, standing in front of his green screen like some atmospheric prophet. The morning dawned absolutely gorgeous. 72 degrees with gentle breezes. Exactly what I dreamed about since I was 12. Then, right as I'm saying I do, the sky turns this sickly yellow-green color, and suddenly ice chunks are pelting my 150 guests who are screaming and diving under tables like we're under enemy fire. My great Aunt Millie got a black eye from a particularly vindictive hailstone. My dress got shredded, and the string quartet abandoned their instruments. But here's what still makes me shake with rage. Brad Weatherby was at my wedding as my neighbor's +1, and I watched him slip out during the chaos, probably to update his forecast to scattered severe weather like he hadn't just spent a week lying to an entire city. 6 months later, I found out Brad had been having an affair with his co-anchor. And when the scandal broke and he got fired, I felt this deep, satisfying vindication that the universe had finally settled our score.
Police officers, what criminal actually impressed you with their criminal skills? My own mother, though she'd roll over in her grave if she knew I was calling her a criminal. When I was 12 and dad left us broke, mom started her entrepreneurial phase. She'd wake me up at 5 a.m., hair perfect, church dress on, that smile that could charm a snake. "We're going shopping, honey." We'd hit Target, Walmart, Best Buy. Always different stores, different towns. She'd fill 2 carts while I pushed the second one, chatting up cashiers about their kids, complimenting their nail polish. She'd buy everything legitimately with our last $200, then march back in 20 minutes later with the receipt and return half the items for cash while keeping the other half. "Store policy," she'd explain. "They can't track what you walked out with if you're friendly enough." For 2 years, we lived off mom's charm and fake email addresses for coupon surveys. I thought she was Robin Hood, stealing from corporations to keep us fed. I felt like her partner in crime. The day I understood what we were really doing was the day she got arrested, not for the returns, but for check fraud at the grocery store. Turns out my business genius was also writing hot checks and using stolen credit cards. As they cuffed her, she looked at me and said, "Take care of yourself, baby." I was 14, standing in a Kroger parking lot, realizing my hero was just a desperate woman who taught her kid that survival and stealing were the same thing. 20 years later, I'm the cop who arrests mothers just like her. Remember when birthdays used to feel special? Now it's just another day you pretend not to care. I spent my 34th birthday working late, pretending I forgot it was happening, but deep down I was still that 7-year-old waiting for someone to remember, without me having to remind them. My mom used to wake me up with Mickey Mouse pancakes, and my dad hung streamers from our tiny apartment ceiling, making me feel like the most important person alive, even though we couldn't afford Chuck E. Cheese like other kids. But here's what no one tells you. The people who made your birthday magical either get too busy or stop caring, and suddenly you're buying your own Walmart cake, pretending it doesn't hurt that your phone stayed silent except for automated texts from your dentist. The moment that broke me was realizing my own mother had forgotten. The woman who used to plan my parties weeks in advance couldn't remember the date she brought me into this world because she's too consumed with my brother's drama and sister's new baby. I sat in my car outside Target holding a birthday card I'd bought myself just to have something to open, and I understood that growing up doesn't just mean losing birthday magic. It means discovering that the love you thought was forever was actually just convenient. And now you're supposed to celebrate yourself because no one else will.
Siblings of the golden child. When did your parents' favoritism come back to bite them? Growing up, my little sister Emma was the golden child. Straight A's, varsity cheerleader, homecoming queen, while I was the difficult one who got grounded for B's and lectured about living up to my potential every Thanksgiving dinner. My parents bought her a brand new Honda Civic at 16 and paid her sorority dues, while I worked double shifts at Applebee's just to afford community college textbooks. For 23 years, I watched them pour everything into their perfect daughter while treating me like the family disappointment. Until Emma called, sobbing from rehab, confessing she'd been addicted to Adderall since high school and had blown through a $50,000 trust fund on pills and gambling. The real gut punch came when my parents called me, the failure, begging for help because Emma had maxed out their credit cards, forged checks, and pawned my mom's wedding ring, and they suddenly needed their responsible daughter to save them from bankruptcy. Now I'm 30, financially stable with my own house, watching my parents scramble to undo decades of enabling while Emma's in her third stint at rehab, and every time they tell me how proud they are of me now, I think about how the child they neglected became the only one strong enough to save them from the child they spoiled.